The chair now recognizes Mr. Gosar for 5 minutes of questioning.
Yes. Mr. Patterson, critics will tell us that Mexican wolf has not met the recovery yet. But you and I both know that's false. You describe this problem as America being held hostage by a foreign government, AKA Mexico. Question, should the international population of Mexican wolves remain in domestic goals?
Thank you, Congressman. It's absurd for us to be so arrogant as to think in the United States that we can dictate foreign policy in Mexico. If the Mexican government wants to recover the wolf, let the Mexican government recover the wolf. But what we can control is what happens in the United States, I would hope. So what we should focus on is what's in the United States.
You mentioned the cost earlier in your testimony, but are American taxpayers footing the bill for recovery in Mexico? And what is that cost?
To date, according to the Fish and Wildlife Service, the American taxpayer has spent $74.6 million on recovery of the Mexican wolf. At a hearing in Reserve, New Mexico, a couple weeks ago, the chief of the Wildlife Division was asked the question, are we sending money to Mexico to help them recover the Mexican wolf? The answer was yes. How much of the $74.6 million is going to Mexico? I do not know, and he didn't answer.
Wow. Now, as a dentist and a healthcare professional, I must address the human impacts of the Mexican wolf. Now, here I have a study in 2006 from Dr. James Ty titled Psychological Impact of Wolf Introduction, a preliminary study, which found that many of the children and adults affected suffered emotional distress from those close encounters with wolves and trauma attacks on their pets and livestock. Now, I understand this as a dentist because when you hurt a kid, you hurt them for a lifetime, okay? So Mr. Ty concluded, it is clear that the individuals involved fear a loss of income, serious damage to their way of life, the greatest fear focused around a very real and present threat of a wolf attack on a human, most especially a young child. Another one here, a 2007 study from Dr. Julia Martin titled Changes in the Mental Health of Children Who Have Been Intimately Exposed to Wolves, found that the changes have affected children's behavior to include about 75% of major symptoms of PTSD. I asked you to be placed in the record.
Without objection, so ordered.
Mr. Patterson, do you agree that the Mexican wolf continues to negatively affect the children and adults?
I think the Navajo Nation has it correct, Congressman. The Alamo chapter of the Navajo Nation has subscribed to the testimony on video on wolvesamongus.org that the Mexican wolf is evil. It is a skinwalker. It is a personification of evil. It causes mental illness. I would add to that the personal experience with my neighbors, with Callie McQueen, who wakes up nights screaming with nightmares of wolves. The nightmares that her older sister, Taylor McQueen, has because wolves killed her barrel horse. Of course, these kids don't feel safe. Of course they will have problems with the consequences of this program.
So now I'm in another part. The mismanagement of the Mexican wolf is another case of NGOs taking the reins and steering the initial intent completely off course. Can you speak to how the NGOs have hindered the progress in recovery, delisting, and delinking?
In our experience, the NGOs have advocated for one thing, more wolves, regardless of what the impact is going to be on the people who live among wolves. We have to pay attention to the reality of the people who live among wolves, and they refuse to acknowledge that. Every time we make a suggestion, whether it's about population control or about dealing with habituated wolves or giving public safety officials and livestock producers the tools they need to manage around wolves, they have objected. So are they compromising the ability to recover the wolves? Absolutely, because if we don't get local buy-in to recovery of Mexican wolves, we will never have a successful recovery program. And that's one thing that this administration has recognized. It's not just numbers, it's sustainable recovery.
And it's an inclusion of everybody within that process, more local control.
Absolutely.